Ayahuasca is a root and a vine. And what does a root and a vine have to grow through? It has to go through the mycelium network. Anywhere you have any growth on the planet, it has to grow through the mycelium network, which is Mother Nature's brain. We take reishi mushrooms, we take cordyceps, we take lion's mane, turkey tail to improve our memory. This is an enhanced version of that to open up access and allow our mind to, in a way, be so connected that it allows for the heart to be more involved. And it's a powerful tool.
Welcome everyone to the Eons Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Alex Wolfe. And on the show, we like to have deep, intimate conversations with amazing people that are eons ahead. But what does it mean to be eons ahead? Well, it means they're ahead of their time. They see things other people don't see, and they're able to communicate those visions to the world and manifest them into reality, making a positive impact for humanity. They're doing things other people don't do. They're trailblazers, they're pioneers, they're conscious leaders. And our guest today is definitely one of those. His name is Scott Seymour. Scott was an actor and nurse turned transformational soul purpose coach. He specializes in mindset, communication, and conscious partnership work. He's a healer, he's a podcast host, and he's also a facilitator at Garen Jones Artist Power Collective. He's also co-founder of the Wolfe Heart Way, a men's work collective in Joshua Tree. It's Scott's mission to help men and women tap into their passions and find their true purpose. Those who are ready and willing to wake up to the truth that they're more than just their thoughts, and they are the consciousness underneath it all. With using mindset and emotional intelligence and breath work, Scott leads retreats and sacred plant ceremonies to reconnect you back to you and remember the love that you are. He's definitely eons ahead. He's a good friend. He's here today. Scott Seymour.
Thank you, brother. That was beautiful. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Happy to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
Honor to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
So there's a lot of things I want to dive in, Scott. You know, I know you've had many chapters of your life. We talked about a few of them in the intro.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're working on some amazing things today, now, and we're going to dive into all that. But I like a good origin story. So what was the shift that made you go from, actor and nurse into a transformational soul purpose coach? Was it a calling, or tell us about that journey a little bit?
Yeah, so I was an actor for 16 years in Los Angeles,
Wow.
and I loved it. I was on a few different shows, did the OC and The Shield and a soap opera called Young and the Restless.
Oh, yeah.
And
Victor Newman.
That's right. That's right. There's the Abbotts and the Chancellors. I was Billy Abbott, the youngest in the Abbott family. And I was in a relationship at the time, and while acting is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances, the person that I was with romantically at the time had a hard time with me being romantic with other people on screen, obviously.
Right.
You have to really convince the world, you have to connect with that character.
Right.
And I had a lot of heartbreak in my home life. So I was like, okay, I can't just choose my roles. I have to do whatever roles come to me at this point in my career. And I decided, okay, I really want to be with this person. I'm going to switch. We went through a breakup, and I was like, I'm going to get them back. So
Classic.
I decided I wanted to change my life and my direction to a life of service. Volunteered at the fire department, the sheriff's department, and at the hospital.
Wow.
Fell in love with the hospital, went back to school to become a nurse, and then started practicing Western medicine. Western medicine is like insurance and pharmaceutically driven.
Right.
And in that time of me going to nursing school, I met my now wife, Emily Fitz, and we, as we were getting married, hired 2 conscious partnership coaches. Before we were getting married, she was like, we're going to get divorced within a year if we don't actually open up new channels of communication.
Wow.
And I really wanted a really nice watch. I wanted the signed copy of The Princess Bride, my favorite book and movie. Like, that's what I wanted as my wedding gift. And she was like, no, if we're doubling down on our relationship, let's double down on our communication skills.
Smart.
So we hired this couple, Ama and Santos Castro, out of Joshua Tree, California. And we take responsibility for the work that we do and have done, but they taught us how to communicate in an effective way and open up channels of understanding our own emotions taking responsibility for our emotions, coming together and having these conversations, and not just saying, okay, what happened in this? It's like, oh shit, this was really effective. This triggering moment happened. I need to do some homework. Let me step back. What happened factually? What did my mind make that mean? How did I react? What was the feeling underneath that? What's the history of that feeling? And how can I take 100% responsibility for those feelings and for the history of those triggers? And then bring that to the table, saying this has 100% to do with me. I take responsibility for my feelings and my emotions. And here's my vulnerability. Here's the history of that pain that brought up this abandonment from my father leaving when my parents got divorced when I was 12. Like it leads with vulnerability. And
Powerful.
Then we got married in 2018, September 8th of 2018. And 2019, our coaches were leading a trip down to Peru to sit for 2 ayahuasca ceremonies and a Huachuma ceremony. We've never done a psychedelic aside from cannabis at that point in time in our lives. And we went down for this trip. At that point in time, I was on 10 years of Adderall.
Wow.
I was drinking heavily. And I had cannabis like heavily in my life, and I was balancing all these things. Like I knew how to function in society with each of these, but I had to detox off all of them to sit with grandmother.
Right.
I punched myself in the face. I gave myself 2 black eyes in my detox. Like I went through this whole thing, and I was so afraid because I knew that my wife loved me, but for 10 years, I didn't know who I was.
Right.
I didn't know who I was without these substances in my system. So truly getting clean, then going and sitting for these ceremonies. And I mean, it could be a whole thing about like what came through with those transmissions. But when we came back, the healing that took place was far and above anything that I've ever experienced before, and way more intrinsic than any of the therapy that I ever got from any psychologist, any therapist. And really, I got back and I was like, holy shit, this life is not about the things that I haven't done. It's about the people I haven't served and how can I serve better? So that husband and wife that were our coaches, we then got trained by them in conscious partnership coaching. And then at the time, his name was Rudy. His name is now Santos. I love name changes. But he and I started up the Wolf Heart Way, a men's collective, and leading ceremonies for men to explore their feelings, to explore their emotions, to understand their emotions, to understand how to bring this conscious partnership and emotional intelligence and responsibility to themselves so that they can be better men, better leaders, and truly be the embodiment of men who understand all their feminine also. So one of the, I guess, bases of that is men for a long time haven't really, like they'll stand in their king power, but they won't have their full queen power, and they won't stand in their full feminine. And if you don't have that queen power, like the divine feminine in her strongest is like Mother Mary love, is like your deep maternal love of you could have killed someone, you could have run over someone's dog, you could have done some horrible things, but you're going to be loved anyways. And without that powerful love and resistance to your king is going to be a tyrant. So it really is how to stand in your king, how to bring out your full feminine, how to let your feminine flow and like be that embracement for your own structure and your own chaos within. And then in society, hold for the feminine to rise and be the anchor for the masculine in that way. And from that point in time, I started working with different men, doing basically life coaching with them. And those men were in high school and college, and they started going off into the NFL and the PGA. And so I've been doing mindset work with men in those arenas since then. And it really is like, it's peeling back and remembering the reason that your soul, like it's soul purpose work, it's transformational soul purpose work. It's like your soul chose to have this human experience. Right. Like you were an expression of God having this human experience, but you chose to come here. Right. And your soul has this dharma. You have a fingerprint on the underbelly of your soul. Why did you come to be here? And life will keep lifing, and you're gonna keep on stacking things on top of your desk. But if you don't clean off that desk and remember the truth of why you're here, I mean, you could be successful in society, but if you're chasing after someone else's dharma, are you really succeeding? Because if you're failing going after your own dharma, you're at least on the path of why your soul chose to come to be here. And you have these gifts and how to activate those and bring those online and really usher men and women back into that deep remembering of who they are.
Beautiful. a lot there that I want to unpack. That was awesome. There was one thing that you said that came up when, we stack things on top of our desk, and these are thoughts and habits and beliefs, or is it more? Tell us a bit more about the things that we stack on top of our desk, and then how do we remove these things that we would clear off our desk to tap more into purpose?
Great question. So it's like our day and our life is this constant platform of how we execute, of how we meet the world. And like, it's those chosen responsibilities. It's things that we actually allow into our lives. And some of them we say, oh, I don't have control. I have to do that. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
It's a choice.
Right. It's always
it's
choice.
It's a powerful choice to make, but these are the things that you're allowing to have on your desk. Like, even here's a globe. Here's these beautiful eons. Like, across the board, we choose what we put on, and then we get to clear those things off if they're not serving us. So, if focus really goes where energy flows,
yes,
and you're choosing what's in your peripheral, then it's saying, okay, what relationships am I having? Are they serving me? Like, what jobs am I actually allowing into my world? We're not buried, we're planted. So who are we surrounding ourselves with? What is the environment? And it's intentionally taking that time to clear that desk. And I think that really ties into like one of the primary things with any aspect of functionality is the importance of having that daily routine for yourself. Like, first thing in the morning, actually having a practice before you jump into all the responsibilities that you have, how to ground in with yourself and what your intention is for that day, like what your goals are for that specific day, and to clear those off so that you're bringing focused awareness to anything that you're choosing intentionally to bring yourself to.
Totally. It's a good practice, and something that I truly, believe in. And it's something that I do every day is I have this, crazy morning routine, but I've seen the flip side of when I don't have this routine that really sets my foundations for the day. It's pretty extensive, but it basically allows me to tap into these fundamental frequencies that I want as my anchors, that I show up in as a world with forgiveness and love and peace and trust in myself. So then when I show up to this, the things that are stacked on my desk, so to speak, that I chose to put there because I believe that they're part of my purpose. And sometimes it gets uncovered that maybe they're not. But yeah, it's what a difference if I don't have this early morning routine. I know you get up early as well. I see on social media with the videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you want to share some of your morning routine that helps you set the foundation?
I would love to. And I just want to speak into what you said as far as having those specific perspectives, because it's a choice. Like, to live life as blessed is a choice. Like, it's actually choosing how you see the world. And when you're in a state of love, joy, or gratitude, and you realize that life is happening for you and not to you, and you get yourself into like, I can get into love and joy, but gratitude is really easy.
It's the easiest one.
It's the easiest one.
Yeah.
So, but when you're in those states, you can't feel fear. Like, it's impossible for you to feel fear in the body at the same time.
That's right.
So anchoring into those frequencies to start the day and be like, everything that's coming back to me, everything that I'm going to see throughout this day, like, yes, if you go into a psychedelic ceremony, if you go into sit into any ceremony, there is an intention, and you if it's done in what I would consider a safe way, you have an opening and a closing. And that's what you get to do with this. Like, life is the ceremony. I'm sorry, but if you don't integrate this, you're just doing drugs and calling it spiritual.
Right.
So it's treating the day as the ceremony. It's having an opening ceremony for the day and having a closing ceremony for the day. Welcoming your ancestors. If I am my ancestors, if I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, welcoming them in to my day, paying honor and homage to them. So when I start my day, within the first 2 minutes of waking up, just because I have all the energy from the previous day and all the energy from my subconscious running when I'm dreaming, I go right into a cold shower for 3 minutes.
Oh, nice.
Just right away.
Reset.
That way it just sheds it. That way I have a clean slate. I come out of it. Then I go into breath work for 10 minutes.
Nice.
Do the breath work for 10 minutes. Then I go into a meditation. The meditation goes for 10 minutes. And at the end of the meditation, I actually focus on the 3 goals that I created the night before. So there's an old saying, I don't want to say when, way back when, like Renaissance times or when we worked on farms, is the next day started the night before. They actually started preparing for the next day the night before. So when I'm going to bed in my wind down routine, when my phone is on the other side of the room, I'm actually journaling saying, did I do my 3 things of the day? Not anger, not like judging. Am I frustrated with myself? Like, did I do them? Did I not?
Right.
What went well? What didn't? And what 3 things tomorrow, if I did those, would make the day, that would be it.
Right.
So at the end of my meditation the next morning, I have those 3 goals. And then I just see them, I feel myself. Like this morning, I felt us, like just, I didn't know what it was gonna look like. I didn't know how beautiful it was gonna be in here, but I just like felt your energy, what it would be like to be here with you, having it go well, having it go smoothly, like what it would feel like inside. And having that visual embodiment of that coming out of that. Then there's a book that I read a chapter of called The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Oh yeah, O.G. Mandingo.
Yeah. So there's the scrolls. And of the scrolls, there's a practice where once you're done with the book, it's like a 9-month program where you read each of the scrolls and, I will greet each day with love in my heart. I am nature's greatest miracle. I will persist until I succeed. And when you read one of the scrolls, you read it in the morning, you read it midday, and at night you read it out loud. So then I just read the second scroll because it's my favorite one of I will greet each day with love in my heart. Yeah. And then I just go for a 30-minute run.
Beautiful.
But that usually takes like the first hour of the day. And in doing so specifically, and it's like, it's so easy to skip over these things. And everyone says like, oh yeah, meditate. But when you actually get into the state of clearing your mind and not having your mind being like, this is how I'm going to be a good father today. This is how I'm going to be a good husband today. This is how I'm going to be a good coach today. When you're just like, okay, make me hollow bones. Let source work through me today.
Right.
How does God want to love the world through me? Not what does Scott want, but how does God want to love the world through me?
Right.
Let me be open to any and everything, and like, let me not have a preconceived notion, because when I'm up here, I'm not in here, and this is where spirit talks to me. This is the control center, but this is the engine. So like, how much can I let this thing pour through and prime myself to lead from that heart-centered space versus from the control center?
Totally. It's well said. That's been such a practice for me too, is to just keep bringing it back down to the heart, keep bringing it back down to the heart, because that's really, just in my humble opinion, where we connect with God, source, energy. And I could feel such a contrast in my being or my vessel when I'm stuck in my head, you know, versus in the heart. And it's just constantly bringing it back down to the heart, bringing it back down to the heart. And lately I've just been putting my hand on my heart and just sending myself love, sending God love. Because like you said, like God is really living through us. It's like he, slivered himself off into all these, billions of people to have the utmost incredible life experience. Right? Yeah. It's so cool. So I'm like, who am I to like get in the way of that? Like, Alex Wolfe has his plans and agenda, but like the more that I could, like you said, get out of my own way and just let God come through, the more the magic happens.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the bus stop analogy?
No, tell me.
So there's this book called The Energy Codes by Dr. Sue Morter.
Cool.
And
love the title.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Spinal doctor, and she inherited this way of teaching from her father. And it's a beautiful book. But it has this thing called the bus stop analogy. And in it, it says, okay, we all have soul tribe. We all have a pod of different souls that we incarnate with over and over again. And we choose to. It's kind of like we resonate with certain frequencies. But before, we're like, okay, we're coming to Earth.
Right.
We're sitting at this cosmic bus stop. And we're sitting at the bus stop, and one person says, like, I'm going to come down. What am I going to work on this time? I'm going to work on forgiveness. I'm going to work on love. I'm going to work on full self-expression, be the biggest expression. And when someone's like, I'm going to work on like forgiveness. Okay, like self-forgiveness or forgiveness of others? Okay, well, I'm going to work on forgiveness of others. Like a level 5? No, I'm going to go big this time. I'm going to go for like a level 10.
Oof.
What does that look like? It looks like driving down the road with your family, having a drunk driver hit you head on.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You become paraplegic and your whole family dies. And you have to go through 20 years of hating this person to then find the deepest level of forgiveness of others.
Dude.
And then saying, okay, this is what I'm going for. I need someone to play the role of the bus driver. I need someone to play the role of the guy who's driving this other car who's going to hit my family. Who will play that? Who will do that as a gift for me?
Jeez.
We all have contracts with each other. So like, who will do that? And it's like, will someone please? And someone will be like, well, I really want to level 10 self-forgiveness. So I'll do that. And then saying, okay, thank you. I'm going to see you down on Earth side.
Wow.
And then realizing like, we all have these special contracts. Like anyone that we interact with, we have these special contracts with of, you're here to play this role in my life, in my own awakening. So even when we curse someone, like perceived weaknesses are our greatest strengths. It's like those people who we're cursing at are actually playing a role to be that reflection. If we're only in, if life is only in relationship with ourselves and everyone else is just a mirror, then they're showing us where we can heal in those deeper levels. Right. And we can't, everyone can have their own political agendas, but if you don't like someone on a political scope, they're playing a specific role to usher you in to understand yourself on a deeper level. They had to sign up to play that role for your own awakening.
Right. They're playing their part.
Yeah.
Wow. So cool. Imagine the Bill Gateses of the world and these kind of guys playing their role, right?
Right.
Yeah. Maybe it's just part of it. It definitely brings a level of compassion to it when you look at it like that. And compassion is an amazing frequency to be in.
Yeah.
It also sounds like, these people could just be here to teach us a lesson that is part of the soul contract that we signed up for.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. A big lesson that I've been learning throughout this year of 2024 specifically is detachment. And we talked about that a little bit before the show with like no expectations. Right. And for example, I was working on this big deal for the last 8 months, potential collaboration with another really cool brand for Eons. And, the negotiation started like 8 months ago. And as time went on, I just kept putting more and more importance on this deal happening. To the point where I could like literally feel the pressure and, I've told people about it and what if it doesn't happen? And I'm creating all these stories in my mind and it felt so heavy until I finally detached. And I was like, you know what? I'm done thinking about this thing. I'm just letting it go and letting God. And if this is meant to be, it's meant to be. And it was literally like 2 days later after I detached that the deal closed, And I was like, wow, okay, there's really something here to detachment because it's not, I feel like it's not getting in the way of what's trying to come through with our own ideas or storyline of how it's happening.
Yeah.
Is there a lesson that comes to mind for you that you're learning or in the process of, or something big in the last year or so?
Well, I know that when you're holding on to things, looking a certain way, you can't receive blessings and miracles with closed fists. And to really have that surrender is, it goes back to like Yoda, like be prepared to let go of everything that you fear to lose. And even like Buddha's Four Noble Truths, like all of life is suffering. And all suffering comes from attachment. Right. And there's a way out of suffering. And it's like, that's part of the human experience. Yeah. Part of the human experience is like, we wanted to, yes, our soul doesn't die. Our soul, like our body will die, but our soul doesn't die. And so our soul gets to experience, we are spiritual beings having this human experience, and we get to have these emotional attachments, and it's like we wanted it. It's the flavors of life. Right,
full spectrum.
Yeah, and it's similar to like that whole pendulum of like, we can only love as deeply as we've felt pain. So when we're in the middle of the pain, it's like, man, this is just carving out the beauty of my heart. Like it's kind of like, it's kind of like the analogy of like the shore. Like we're the consciousness, we're the shore. There's the waves that are crashing on our shore. There's all the emotions that are crashing on, but every emotion has a 90-second lifespan if you don't recycle it on top of itself. So it's just a wave that comes in and goes out. There's some that are smaller, there's some that are bigger. But when you do any of this spiritual work, you're just basically putting on some scuba gear and looking at your reef. Like you're figuring
for a
out
swim.
how to, like where the deeper parts of the reef are being carved out, where you have different impacts from your past, different living memories, different living traumas, things that you've healed from, but like then how to surf your way in.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to navigate your ocean of emotion and get somewhere else, then it's the wind of life is blowing on all of us. It's just learning how to cast your sail.
Right.
It's just like, how do you adjust and then embrace that wind? Because the wind's not going to change. The wind is going to keep on blowing.
Right.
And then it's like, how do I carve? How do I propel? How do I, if you're swimming in the ocean, you're going to get really tired if you go against the tide.
Right.
But if you go with the tide, you learn to swim with the tide. You're working with it. It's just like working with everything, that all life's energy, because we're a combination of it all. Like we are part of nature.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So how do you specifically, Scott, learn how to surf those waves of emotion when things are getting heavy and heated and
beautiful?
like what's a trick or a tip that you could share with, someone, because you're doing conscious partnership work and all this. What's a trick that you could use?
Every feeling deserves to be felt. Don't suppress the feeling. You don't have to understand the feeling to express it sometimes. So for instance, our car broke down, our alternator went out the other day, it was like a month ago. And I was in the middle of this intersection right outside of Omley South Shore in 1618 in the middle of Riverside Drive. And I had two people come to jump me, but the second that they disconnected the cables, because it was the alternator, the car just died. And I was
to
just
boost
like,
you, to give you a boost.
They boosted me.
Oh, right.
And it jumped, but then they disconnected it and the alternator just, so I was just like, fuck. And I was just sitting there. And then I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be here. I know I want to be somewhere else. If I'm exactly where I need to be, I'm being protected, and if I do get hit, hoka hey, like today is a good day to die. Like I lived every way that I was supposed to, but like, can I surrender and just be like, okay, I feel like I should be home. I feel like I should be somewhere else, but I am exactly where I need to be.
Acceptance.
And all my pain will come from not accepting what's true. That's a Byron Katie channel. It's like all pain will come from not accepting what's true. And what's true is that I'm here right now. That doesn't mean that I bypass my emotions. I'm still like, I can have that understanding, but I'm still frustrated.
Right.
So I was like, how do I express that? And I just went into this like 2-minute rap for myself. And I was like, I'm sitting on the side of the road and I'm fucking angry. I feel like I should be somewhere else. And I just started screaming and raging and be like, the tow truck's taking too long, but it's perfect because he's exactly where he needs to be. And it was just like allowing, it's like Preston Smiles in his Stretch 22 program had this thing called the catch and the release. And when you have these emotions, it's not to say I shouldn't be having these emotions.
Okay.
Fuck that. You should be having it. That's why you're having it. It's how much can I fully feel it? How much can I actually become in tune with it? If I'm feeling this feeling, what does it feel like in my body? Where am I feeling it in my body? It's like the video game of Zelda as a kid, like you're mapping it out. Like you're like, okay, where in my body am I feeling it? What's its temperature? What's its texture? What's its color? What's its vibration? Is it throbbing? How big is it? And then if it had a microphone, what noise would it make? And then if it had words, what would it say? And then like having whatever that expression is, if it's physical, as long as it doesn't hurt someone around you. And sometimes like I even inhibit myself being like, well, this is going to affect someone else. Someone else is going to see this and then they're going to be hurt. Well, then I'm hurting myself by not expressing this. So can I respect everyone around me and still be this expression? Because maybe this will be a gift for them. Maybe they're going to see this and be like, wow, you can do this in a respectful way. You can figure out a way to do this. Now, I was in my car at the time, so it was a lot easier for me to just express it without it affecting other people.
Right.
But sometimes in public, it's like, I don't want to affect other people. I don't want to hurt other people in certain ways. And I'm in repressing, I'm hurting myself to some degree. And can I find another time to then have that expression? It's that no feelings are wrong.
Sure.
Sometimes feelings are mislabeled. Sometimes we don't understand even the basis of feelings. Like I felt horrible for feeling jealous for a long time. And that I didn't understand that jealousy literally just means that I see someone else having something And I don't think that I'm worthy of that.
Mm.
If it switches to full embodiment and responsibility, jealousy turns into inspiration.
Mm.
Because when I see someone else doing something
Okay,
and
I
I
want
know
that.
that I'm worthy of it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a permission slip and it shows me how it's possible.
Sure. It's like, I could do that. If they could do that, I
Right.
could do that.
And it was like, oh, well, this person's hitting on my wife or my girlfriend. I'm so jealous. I'm like, I had to hit on my girlfriend and my wife. Like, I found her beauty. Someone else finds her beauty. Of course they're going to find her beautiful.
course.
Like, it's appreciation of the beauty of humanity.
Of course.
And then we take full responsibility for our sovereign actions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not repressing. And I would say in that it's also finding the places within you that you've held that guilt, that you've held shame, that you've held that lack of full acceptance and love. Because the steps for any aspect of change is the first step is always awareness. And you can't effectively change what you're not perceptive to.
Right.
So now I'm aware, and it doesn't go awareness, now I do something different.
That's where I was going to get to. Yeah.
Because if you just do that, then you're rejecting this.
You're skipping the middle part.
And
the
that's
messy
acceptance.
Middle. Yes.
The acceptance is the big part. Because even if it's something like that didn't serve me, you have to love the part of you that it was trying to, like, it was serving you for a long time. So it's saying, oh, I'm aware I'm doing this. I accept the fact that this is the way that I've been doing it for a long time, and it has been trying to serve me, and I now am taking that responsibility for myself, and I'm not allowing myself to go in this way, and then I'm acting from a new aligned action. It's almost like
would you sorry to interrupt, but would you say that's becoming the observer of your emotion or thoughts or emotion, or is that different?
Oh, absolutely. It's finding, I think God whispers to us, or we whisper to ourselves for that matter, in the space between the reaction and the response. And so it's observing it without reacting to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then allowing yourself to feel whatever emotion is there for however amount of time.
Because it deserves to be felt. And if you repress it, you can't repress one emotion and then not your other emotions. They're all connected with the same tube. Or like Brother Guerin says, it's like a watering hose. And if you're kinking that watering hose, all of your emotions, it's not just sadness, your joy's in there too.
Right.
So if you're repressing that, it's like, how do I open that up and actually create a clear irrigation for all of my energy to flow through?
I love it. And I think I know the answer to this, but let me ask for the audience, a kind of rhetorical question. Plant medicines, and are these a good tool to unlock the garden hose of our emotions?
Beautiful question. Plant medicines are a beautiful tool that can give us window access to what is possible. And I'm reading Be Love Now by Ram Dass's second book after Be Here Now. And it talks about LSD and it talks about psilocybin and how for a brief duration, it gives you a window into Christ consciousness. It gives you a window into that. And therapy can get to these places. We can get to these places. You do not need these at all.
Right.
It's that it gives you an aspect of backdoor freedom. I don't see backdoor. I don't even like that idea of it's a backdoor.
Like instant access?
Almost an instant access. Just, it brings you back into, it's almost like an old video game of Nintendo. Like it resets your energy.
Yeah.
It brings you back into the source of love. The things that you usually wouldn't talk about, that you'd have a hard time talking about, just come to the surface and naturally get to be met. And it's so important to not just, people say, I'm just going to go to a concert, or I'm just going to go and check out in these ways. This is a place to check in.
Yeah.
Like, this connects your left and your right hemisphere like 200 to 300 times. And it's a lot of energy that is opening up and you're creating new neural pathways. And so allowing yourself to explore and actually with an intention, not to be in tension, but to be intentional, like, where do you seek to heal? And can I seek to heal from the things that I know? And can I seek to heal from the things that I don't even know that I need to heal from? And having that safe set and setting to explore and to meet these aspects with curiosity, it's such a powerful, potent tool, and can give you a sense of It's not the answer, but it gives you a window as to how to be this, and then it's taking that the next day into your life, how to integrate that into your life. But it's not a fix.
Right. It's a tool.
And I know that I'm preaching to the choir, especially with Eons, but what I love about, and people ask about, like, okay, well, with LSD, well, LSD is from ergot, which
Correct.
is a fungus.
That's right. Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have this, and what about ayahuasca? Well, ayahuasca is a root in a vine. And what does a root in a vine have to grow through? It has to go through the mycelium network.
Right.
Anywhere you have any growth on the planet, it has to grow through the mycelium network, which is Mother Nature's brain.
Yes.
We take reishi mushrooms, we take cordyceps, we take lion's mane, to turkey tail to improve our memory. This is a enhanced version of that to open up access and allow our mind to, in a way, be so connected that it allows for the heart to be more involved. And it's a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool to understand, to recenter to your energy. And in the past 5 years, I can't count on more fingers and toes than I have, like well over 30 to 40 people that I've worked with in different ceremonies where they have been on like large amount of antidepressants and now they're completely off.
It's beautiful.
It's resetting to your own natural state. Like when you were a baby, you just loved. You just loved.
Yeah.
And it gets you back to this place of just loving, and you start to, it's a projection, but sometimes you start judging yourself for not loving yourself for so long. And there's a lot of healing to be done there, because then you start looking back and say, how long have I not loved myself? How long have I been judging others?
Sure.
And if I really see that where I'm judging others is literally where I'm judging myself, like I had to create that judgment up here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of internal heartache that comes with that. And that, again, it's a projection. It doesn't have to. But the heart feels for where it's been bleeding for so long.
Right.
And feeding itself that own poison of lack of forgiveness. And I think one of my favorite definitions of forgiveness, which is really confronting for a lot of people, is true forgiveness means that nothing wrong ever happened in the first place.
Just was meant to be.
It's like, even if it was something really ugly, perception, it happened.
Right.
I get caught up whenever I hear a psychologist or I hear a therapist say, like, that wasn't supposed to happen. That's not going to help someone's healing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
that goes back to the resistance and which equals the suffering.
Yeah, it was supposed to, it happened. Therefore, it was part of the human process. Like, I'm going extreme here just because I like pushing the limit.
Sure, let's go.
But 9/11, I have friends who passed away there. I have friends' parents who passed away in that experience. And it is a tragic, horrible thing that took place. Anything that happens out of wound creates more wound. That was, we look at that, but then that even though they were full of hate, people only become full of hate at a certain point because of pain that was bestowed upon them. Like, everyone that's part of the Taliban had to be filled with a lot of pain. Like, we're not following the chain of the pain. Like, the judgment is like, okay, they did this horrible thing. Yes, they did. And the reaction, absolutely. But it was a reaction to being in pain and an echoing of pain. And until we actually have accountability, and it doesn't be like responsibility, but it's like accountability, saying this is where the US or this is where other aspects of humanity hurt and oppressed in other places, everyone's going to be angry at each other.
Right.
It's like, I see your pain and I honor your pain.
Yeah, it starts with that, right? Recognizing it and being aware of it and going to the root cause of why it happened to try to heal that pain so it just doesn't more hurt people, just keep hurting people, right? Yeah.
Anything that happens out of wound creates more wound.
Right.
So that way you could be doing something great, but if you're doing it with that energy, the energy is what's transferred. You could doing, like, there's the old analogy of two men that are carrying stones down a road, and ask the one man, what are you doing? He's like, I'm exhausted and I'm just carrying the stone down the road. And the other one's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm building a cathedral.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the energy that you bring to it. And
Yeah,
so you
the story.
bring this energy and it's transferred into what you do. Like, it affects the way that you present yourself. It affects the way that you show up in life, the vibration in which you live. That goes back to that gratitude. If you get into that state and then you just act as this open nerve that's tapping into everything around you, you can just say, there's an expression of God or even if you take away the ego, it's just soul, because the soul is the expression of God, and just like you can love the soul.
Yeah.
You don't have to like the ego.
Yeah. Yeah. He serves its purpose, the many identities, they serve their purpose. They got us here today, they drove us in the car, right?
Right.
To get
They
us
totally
here.
did.
Yeah. So it's part of it, but I love where you're going with that, Scott. And this is something I've been playing around with more and more I mentioned it in your intro, where we remember the love that we are, right? Like we're really these love beings, right? This energy of love. That's how we came into this world. And then all this programming and these things get stacked up onto our desk from childhood and school and expectations and all this stuff. And we're, like we're saying, these, God bless these mushrooms and these psychedelic medicines, when used with intentionality, can really start to help clear the things off the desk and bring us back to that state of love. That's really where we're at our core. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I wish for everybody to experience that, and whether they have to use, mushrooms or not for that. But I think it could make a major impact on humanity itself, is just by people remembering that we are love and to choose love. And like we've brought up a few times now, that it's always a choice, right? Like there's always a choice point to do everything, including our story of what we're telling ourselves. Just like the guy he's building a cathedral and he's stoked, right?
Yeah.
He's just happy to be alive, and he's in this earth game, this school of earth that we're in here.
Yeah.
So I guess where I'm going with this is, I think mushrooms can play a huge factor in that. And that's why I'm, so happy to be bringing mushrooms to the world with Eons. But do you think that the world is ready? Do you think that the world is ready for these mushrooms, or does nature have its own timing? What do you think?
Yes. Yes. Both.
They're both
it's
ready?
Both.
It's both.
Okay. First, I just want to say thank you for your heart and your mission and what you are doing with Eons, and just in general with bringing the healing of the body, the healing of the mind to the masses. And just like after spending the time that we did in Mexico together, and just like being in that little like sound bath, and then in those caves with you, and just like
awesome.
It was incredible. It's your mission is so beautiful and so big. And I think that the world knows that it needs it. Whenever someone says like the world is overpopulated, it's saying that it's not exactly where it is. It's exactly where it's supposed to be.
Right.
And I do think that the world is ready for it. I think that the world is desiring it. I think that it is, it's begging for it in a lot of ways. When someone is acting angry for some reason, part of me just says, wow, they really need a lot of love. Like it's, even when I have thought about like different, and I believe in ghosts and spirits.
Me too.
And whenever someone's like, well, they're just trying to come over here, I'm like, they're looking to be returned to love. Like they've been out of the source of love, and anything that's not in the light, anything that's in shadow, is looking to be returned to light, is looking to be returned to love. The duality is perfect, and everybody wants to be loved. Back when I was living in Los Angeles, just being around certain environments of gangs, asking a gang member, saying, what's the point of all this? A few people that I spoke to was like, I can't get on board with that. It's all about love. Can you get on board with like respect? Respect, in my opinion, is the most formal version of love that there is. And everyone's looking for that deep love. Everyone's looking for that deep respect. Everyone's looking to be seen and have all parts of them be held. And their pain comes from places where they haven't felt accepted, haven't felt seen by others, but truly by others not accepting it, they've not accepted themselves in those places. So what I love about the mushrooms, what I love about what these plant teachers do for us, is they return us back to our own aspect of love for self. Even in relationship, like I can say like, I love my wife. I love my wife. She's the catalyst for me to access that feeling that I give myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like she gives it to me.
Mm-hmm.
I give it to myself. She's just the mirror that presents it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings us back to that self-sustaining energy of the love that we give ourselves. Can we bask in the love that we give ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And when we can do that, when we love and accept ourselves fully, we love and accept everyone else in the world fully.
Yeah. It's so simple. Like I can't believe it took me this long to start to figure it out. Like it's really all about just allowing ourselves to feel love.
Yeah.
Every day, all day, every day.
Yeah.
And things just get it. And then things come up, like you said, like
Right.
life happens to get in the way of that. And then it's kind of like, okay, how can we remember to like just sort through it to get back to love?
Yeah. So
cool.
So in that, like I had this, my ego had this judgment, because there's places and times in my life where people have stopped talking to me for different reasons, justifiably.
Mm-hmm.
But then my heart has hurt for them, saying, wow, they actually shut off that connection with source. They've cut off, because we're all reflections of each other. They've actually shut off that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I felt bad for them. But then me feeling bad is me not accepting where they are.
Mm.
So I was like, but I want them to just fully love themselves. And if we all are one, like I am you, you are me, I wish everything for yourself that I wish for myself, bless you. Like they're not accepting themselves in those places. But can we be angry if we just look at all of consciousness as this like car production line? Like just because one is further along in the line and one's over here,
Right.
it's just, they're just in a different place. And it's not being angry at it. It's just like the level of source awakening to itself. And that's what we are. Like we're all one. Then we go into the human experience. Then we go into individuality. And then it's returning to an understanding of oneness to then be returned back to source, and it recycles back on top of itself. And it's just like, we forget to remember. It's part of
the game.
part of the design.
Yeah.
It's part of the design. So
Yeah.
when we're like, especially when we feel lost, when we feel like we're on that spiritual screen door that's fallen off the track, we're like, we know it's a good thing because you have to hit that difficulty to get to the next level of awareness.
Totally. Do you ever find that these difficulties pop up once we've hit new heights or new levels of awareness?
Yeah, it's like Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
It's like Mario Brothers. Yeah, it bases down to, or it melts in like alchemy, breaking down to like the basis of my understanding for the communication coaching, for the conscious partnership coaching, which is like the quality of our life is the quality of our communication. And we can only communicate with others as well as we can communicate with ourselves. And then there's that Albert Einstein quote of, a question can only be answered by consciousness greater than which it was asked.
Right.
This is asking better questions.
To yourself?
To yourself first. Creating greater levels of awareness, and then living from that greater level of awareness versus a level of ignorance. And sometimes there's a lot of pain because we have attachments to things that are below us at that point in time. But when we realize everything is temporary, everything is rented, even if you own a house, no, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. That's a Western thing. Like even Native Americans were like, we belong to the land.
Yeah.
We are stewards of the land.
Right.
Like we belong to it. It doesn't belong to us.
Yeah.
So how much can we be stewards of these things, and the things that we enjoy, that we're attached to, we realize that they're fleeting.
Yeah. It's all temporary.
I like Panerai watches. It's beautiful. But it's like when you sit for an Aya ceremony, or I take off my wedding ring, I take off my watch, it's source with source.
You don't need it in the spiritual realm, that's for sure.
Yeah.
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 So true, man. It's such a good reminder that we're all so temporary, and this whole thing is temporary. So to really just remember that and be happy that we even exist, like that we're even able to be here right now, and have that as like a starting point every day, and be like, wow, I'm alive. I'm in this this place, this wild place, that's been so intelligently designed, and it never really ends. Like there's so many levels to it, and as soon as you think you got it figured out, it's just like, no, you don't even have a clue of what's going on. I'm speaking for myself, but
right. Yeah.
It's just this constant reminder that there's always so much to learn, And then every once in a while I get a new code, and you shared many codes today, you know, and for me and the listeners, what a code is like, a code is like a new wisdom that is received. And then with that, you have a new perception. And with the new perception, now you're looking at life in a new way, and now you're able to go in a new direction. So you may have been starting off over here, and now you're going off in a whole new direction.
Right.
And I love these codes, you know, because this is what I think we get to accumulate in the game to go up in levels, like Mario. So I know you've shared many of them today, Scott, but if you had one code that you could share with the listeners that could make an impact in their life, that's impacted you, what is that code?
That if things are going really well, this too shall pass. And if things are going really poorly, this too shall pass. That it really will be all okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And like, you exist, therefore you matter. You are a part of creation. You are made of absolute unconditional love, and the core of what you are is love. And all your pain that you might be potentially feeling is coming from not accepting what is true. So how much can you accept what is true and look for that blessing, look for that lesson, and really, really become a curious investigator as to what this blessing is. If it's an obstacle, how can you see it as this gift and this thing that's ushering you into the more of yourself? And if it really is this trigger that's activating you, how much can you see it as a breadcrumb to your soul's liberation? And just like really see where this thorn of pain is in your side, and allow yourself to have gratitude for the struggle, because it's building you into the greater version of yourself. May I say one more thing?
Please.
Okay,
that was
cool.
wonderful. Yes.
Because there was the biodome, which was in the ecosystem that's in the Arizona desert. They had trees that were growing, and they only grow like 20 feet tall, and they were falling over. And they didn't know why they were falling over. Like, this makes no sense. It's this protected environment.
Right.
And they realized they didn't install wind machines. And we need the resistance. We need the struggle. The struggle is part of the experience. Without the struggle, we don't get the muscle.
Right.
So it's like they need to have that. If you look at the redwood trees over in Big Sur next to the Essel Institute, they're like 50 times thicker on the side where the wind blows in from the ocean. It's where the resistance has that we get the greatest strength.
Yes.
So it's just saying, how can I embrace this and say, thank you, life. Thank you, coach. Thank you, experience. I lean into this. I embrace it. I have gratitude for it, especially if it's hard. And if my heart's hurting, just know that it's going to be okay, that I am made of love. How much can I get in gratitude for that? And if it's really, really difficult, allow yourself to feel and allow yourself to express versus hold on, because that's where depression comes from. It comes from pushing down and suppressing versus allowing yourself to be that full expression, because our soul gets depressed when it needs that deep rest. It's forgotten who it is at its core, and it needs to be who it is from the inside out versus pretending what we feel like the world needs for us to be from the outside in.
Beautiful, brother. What a code to share. So glad that you came up with that. That was incredible. Yeah, I'm just letting that sit in for a bit. It is so temporary, and to just appreciate it all and be so grateful for every aspect of it is really the code, because that's all we really get to take with us at the end, is the memories, is the experience. And like you said, the struggles, the challenging parts are like the qualifiers in this game, that we can actually have conversations like that. Because if you don't have any challenges, what are you really doing here? You know, so it's such a great mindset shift. And I know you're big on mindset, which I love. You know, I could see. But I'm curious. You know, you've mentioned a few cool books today and some cool characters. Purely out of curiosity, if you could have dinner, you know, like a great dinner conversation with one historical figure, who would it be and why?
Oh, easy. Jesus.
Yeah, there we go. Nice. We have that in common.
Yeah. And why? Because I mean, Yeshua is the greatest teacher. I mean, you could put it to Buddha, you could put it to Krishna, but you know, if I had a spiritual team, I think that Jesus is definitely the quarterback.
Nice.
I definitely think they're all tapped into collective and universal consciousness. Even when Yeshua was talking about the Father, I really feel like he was channeling into universal consciousness as the Father, and because he was the embodiment of loving awareness. And you know, I butt up against a few different people with this, where it's like Jesus died for all of our sins. I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying for that. We crucified him. We crucified him. Humanity crucified him. He just met everything with love.
That's
like,
right. Even when he's on the cross.
His lesson was love. His message was to love everything and to be in that vibration of love and to preach that love and to forgive and to love and to forgive. And, you know, it's, if I could be around, because, you know, we are a combination of the people we hang out with. So it's like, if I could spend time with anyone, I'm like, oh, what about Ram Dass? What about what about these different people? It would definitely be Yeshua.
Yeah, great choice.
Yeah.
Me too, man. He's, you know, he's got the codes for sure. And it is as simple as that too. Like, it's really all about love that he was preaching, you know, right up until the very end on the cross. So
yeah. How much can you love yourself? How much can you love your neighbor? How much can you forgive them?
How much can you be love? Be a living example of love all the time. So I'm so glad this is where we ended up, you know, as we start to get close, wrapping up time. That's such a amazing way to top it off here. Is there anything else, Scott, that you want to share that is on your heart?
You know, there's always things on the horizon. There's always things that are being made. Yeah, I mean, there's on my heart. I just really care about redefining what healing looks like. You know,
What do you mean by that?
what I mean by that is, you know, studying Western medicine, they really spoke poorly about naturopathic medicines and root medicines and herbal remedies. And there's such a powerful, potent place for self-regulation with them. I honestly believe mushrooms is a root medicine. And one of my visions in this next duration, something that I'm really fleshing out a business plan for right now, is a holistic healing center out here in Austin, which is very much like a John Hopkins Center meets an Esalen Institute, where the first floor is all root medicines, naturopathic remedies. Second floor is all Western medicine, no contracts to pharmaceutical companies, no contracts with insurance companies. Third story is all spiritual studies, Eastern Vedic studies, pulse healing, like Dr. Clint Rogers, the Ancient Secrets of Master Healers, like stuff where you can actually read the Pitta and the Kapha and the different ways to assess the body. Having a psychedelic research center that does inpatient care for psychiatry that also has end-of-life care. So if someone is on the last portions of their life, to have a psychedelic journey, to actually have an appreciation for their entire life. And a birthing center where there are 50 one-bedroom studios that are really elegant and posh and kind of feel like the Maldives huts, or but they are very elegant, and women who are birthing come in to work with doulas and midwives, and as opposed to an inflatable tub in their house, like actually having a mosaic tile floor with a tub that's built into the floor and really getting back in tune with themselves.
Wow, sounds incredible.
And if they have a problem, holistic doctor can come to them. They don't have to go somewhere else.
Right.
So it's just reinventing and having all the systems work together, like actually having them all work together, and like being a handoff between Eastern and Western medicine. It's not to criticize one or the other. It's saying, how can we actually piece this together? And when a care plan isn't just like, okay, you go on your way, but you have a life coach, you have a physical therapist that works with this. There's farm to table remedies and foods. And I see a better way of healing. And again, anything that comes from wound creates more wound. I don't want to redefine a hospital that already exists, because the medical system is built off of feeding off of illnesses. I care about creating a new system, which is a new tier, which can actually educate nurses and doctors. Actually might be a school for them to begin with, but really incorporates this and then ushers people back into being the whole version of themselves and not relying on anything outside of themselves.
Dude, epic. This sounds absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
I think the audience is going to be super inspired by that. I wish you 100 years of success and that this manifests into reality. This would make such an impact, positive impact on humanity and redefine healing. Now I know what you mean by that. And that just sounds like the best place for healing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. No, thank you for sharing that. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to say something?
No, I was just saying that's what came from the that old Native American saying of if what we're doing now is healing our past 7 generations, and then it's setting in tune and laying out healing for the next 7 generations, and that is like the next 300 years. What can we be doing now that would actually usher that in for the next 300 years? And I think that after sitting with it so many different times, just being in Western medicine and then being in this emotional healing environment, that it's so important to usher life in, usher life out, and then be the healthy stewards of it in the meanwhile, and then just creating a really beautiful new system that I feel like that would enhance all of humanity. And if we are all of humanity, then it's just like, how much can that be out there?
Right.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions that came up there.
Perfect.
One's a bit of a silly question.
I love it.
Do you have a name for this project? Do you have an idea of the name yet?
I don't have a name for the project. I do have a slogan for the project.
Cool. Can you tell us? Can you share?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's adding more life to your years and adding more years to your life.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm excited to see what the name comes out of. I love naming things.
I'm sure Eons will be a part of it.
Oh, I would
sure
love that.
It will be.
I'd absolutely love that. There was one other thing you mentioned in there that kind of like rang a bell. At the beginning, you said the Essenes. Did you say that? The Essenes? Working with the Essenes? Like the Essenes?
Working with Eastern medicine?
Oh, maybe I misheard.
Okay.
No, the Essenes was like a school that I heard that Yeshua worked with from his time when he was like 10 years old to like, when he disappeared in the Bible for those 20 years. I heard he was working with this school of, mystics and brilliant people that he learned all these codes from, and I thought I heard that in there with the Essenes.
Maybe it came out because it was supposed to be there.
I love it.
I love that because like even in this environment, I really see like how many hospitals do you see that have libraries?
Right.
Or that have these spiritual teachings.
The knowledge, yeah.
And it's like if it's the Essenes, if it's the Temple of Isis, across the board, like it's not saying one way is wrong.
Right.
It's saying let's bring all of this together.
Yeah. So much knowledge out there, so much wisdom.
Yeah.
So much knowledge and wisdom that you shared here today, Scott. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you,
so
brother.
many codes here. Oh, it's my pleasure. I just loved it. So many codes here, so much wisdom that I know the audience got to enjoy. Artist Power Collective, the Wolf Heart Way, your coaching, your podcast, all these things. Where can people find you and connect with you if they want to learn more and reach out?
Yeah, my website is scottseymourcoaching.com. And my Instagram is journey_of_man.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. We'll put it in the comments and stuff like that as we upload it.
Beautiful.
Scott, it's been absolutely such a pleasure. I love you. I appreciate you. Such an amazing human being, and so glad we got to do this.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.